Joining us on the left-right debate this morning, political analyst Chris Hurstum. Chris has served at every level of state government and on the staff of a Republican governor, but he's on the left this morning. And Christine Jones, a former top executive at GoDaddy and a former Republican candidate for governor. Welcome to you both.
Good morning. Let's
start with the governor's average 11% raises to staffers who work for him. Almost half of those staffers got raises of up to 20%. In his budget last January, the governor offered teachers a 2% raise over 5 years. Doug Ducey likes to say his government should move at the speed of business. Christine Jones, you're a former business executive, so please make the case for these raises, a business case.
Well, look, if you're a guy who comes to office from the business sector, you're used to saying, if I want the best people and I want them to stay in the job, you have to pay them well. And sometimes it takes a 20% raise to do that. I will say it's bad optics, and it's difficult to justify when you're talking about this in light of the debate over the teacher raises. But I think the question is going to become over time as this evolves is what happens with Prop 123? How is that perceived here? How is it going to play in his future endeavors? And he'll maybe get the last laugh if 123 does exactly what he proposed that it was supposed to do.
Okay, and that was the ballot initiative voters barely approved that gave more money to the schools. That's and right. Raises to teachers. So, Chris, is it just an optics problem that this just doesn't look good?
It looks horrible, but this is deja vu for me. I was in the governor's office in the 90s, chief of staff for Governor Fife Symington, and he wanted to give 10 staffers a 10% raise. And the exact same thing happened. The news media was horrific. It was so bad in about a 48-hour period that he rescinded the raises. He took them back. I think what governors just don't seem to be told at the beginning of their terms is when you hire staffers, you need to tell them that they're never going to get a raise during that term unless state employees across the board get a raise. And they've got to understand that and expect it, because anytime you end up giving double-digit raises to your staff, people that report directly to you, and these numbers now I understand are over 100 employees, it's gone up. And it just looks bad, and it's not right, frankly. State employees haven't gotten any raises for years, and so staffers have to realize they're in it for the 4-year term, and then if the governor gets reelected, he can reset the salaries at that time.
And that's the thing. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this because my wife is a government employee, but this is government work. You're not in the Fortune 50 here or the Fortune 100.
Well, sometimes that's hard to remember and it's hard to relate to. A lot of the staff come from the private sector, particularly in this administration. But as you know, when he retired from the Air Force, my husband became a high school teacher. And I can tell you exactly to the penny what his raise was. And it's not anywhere near even the very smallest of those large raises. And to our great good fortune, it's not as significant to us as it might be to other people. But we've heard from a lot of teachers who are pretty unhappy about this. So I think, Chris, your point about resetting the raises at the beginning of the next term might be a nice way to transition this.
This is one where the left and the right agree.
Well,
here's a business question I have that I haven't seen answered in any of the coverage. You know, business people like to talk about metrics, and if you're going to get a raise, you should hit certain performance goals. And we should point out many of these raises are for people who got promotions, and typically you will get a significant raise. But what about the use of metrics here? And we don't know whether Ducey even did that, or it's, well, yeah, 20 grand more, sure. How is that a way perhaps for the governor to help justify this?
For sure. And if there are a set of metrics against which performance has been measured, and they can set that out and say this particular person in this role got a raise because it's a completely different analysis. I will say you'll still have to answer the question about the teacher raises or lack of raises, but that is definitely a way to justify it. I have to go back to the private sector piece though, because you know to get the best people in the best roles, you have to pay them a lot of money.
But the best people for a given job in government can get paid a heck of a lot more in the private sector, can't they?
Almost always.
You're giving up.
It's called public service.
Exactly.
In defense, though, there are individual examples. For instance, Michael Traylor. He was the director of the housing department. He had 75 employees. Governor Ducey, correctly in my opinion, made him director of the Department of Economic Security, where he now has 7,500 employees. He deserved a big raise. The responsibilities were greater. But these are isolated situations. As for the gubernatorial staff, it looks bad.
Okay, last question. Does this have any legs in the gubernatorial race next year, Chris? Any legs?
Yes, it has lots of legs. It will be used over and over again to beat up Governor Ducey, in my opinion. It's a matter of whether he feels he's so comfortable and safe that he doesn't have to worry about it.
I 100% agree with that. If I'm a Democrat running for governor right now, I have captured this, put a box around it, and I'm already in production on an ad, and I'm going to use it to raise more money than any other single issue in the history of the state.
You made very good ads.